Well, let's continue the 4L80E swap in my 2003 Chevy Suburban half-ton. So if you've not watched the first part of the video, you're going to want to go check that one out. I kind of covered the parts and everything and kind of the first half of the swap, I guess. We're going to continue on. I kind of left off there with the yoke. And so this part, we're going to get the transmission in. I'll show you some of the difference with the cooler lines. We'll do the wiring and all that. So let's get busy and get this thing swapped in. So one of the differences, the trans cooler lines. I'd recommend if you can get the trans cooler lines off the 2500 LS based truck or Suburban, then probably do that. I don't know for sure if it all matches all the way, but I can tell you the 4L60E lines are too short, so you will have to lengthen them. Now, I'm not crazy about this solution. I'm gonna try to find the right lines, but for now, this is what we're going with. So your top line is your return on the 4L60E. You can verify that by seeing which one, if you've got an external cooler, the return from the external cooler will be your return, and the one going into the radiator will be your hot line, and that it goes into the radiator first, then your external cooler, and then back to the transmission. And so on the 4L80E, the rear is the return. And I'll also tell you, do not change out your little quick connect fitting for just a barb or anything generic. The fitting on the back here extends into the transfer case probably an inch or more, and that's to, I guess, direct the fluid coming back, and you will damage the transmission if you don't use that special fitting. I'm sure they make all kinds of different fittings for these, with different ends. If you do need to change it out, just look for 4L80E, return cooler fitting or something like that. So I did have to put a little bit more curve on this one to get it to clear here. After looking at it, it looks like I could have cut the ends off and swapped the ends. This one has more curve to it than that one did. But basically what we're going to do, because we got to do this one as well, we're going to come in here about right here, and we're going to cut this line, and then I'm going to do half of a inverted flare. So I guess it would be like a bubble flare. I'm not positive on that, but what that'll do, if you can see, there's a little bump right here. That is that flare, and that'll help keep the line from coming undone. I also double hose clamped it, and I did a fuel injection style and a standard worm clamp, just because we do not want any chance of these coming off or leaking. And this is transmission cooler hose. To make this even more better, I've got some heat, like fuel line heat protectant stuff. I'll show it to you. It's a roll of stuff with Velcro. You cut it to fit. So we'll cut a piece for both of these and wrap them in that stuff to protect them from heat, because there is a catalytic converter that goes right in here. So just want to give this the best shot of surviving. I do not want, ruptured fuel line or leaking fuel line right on top of, or not fuel line, transmission fluid spraying on the catalytic converter. So all we're doing here is I'm going to go in here with my line cutter and about right there and cut that off. I'll show you the flare that we do, and then we'll put a piece of hose in there to extend it to right there. That's all I'm doing. Like I said, it's temporary, hopefully. but I think it'll be okay. So I'll bring y'all back once I get that cut off, and I'll show you the flare. All right, so we got a clean cut from our tool. We're gonna clamp this in. These are just a snap-on double flaring set. It's typically what you would use for flaring brake lines. And we've got a little insert here that does your first part of your flare. Typically you'd set this in, you'd flare it, and then you would take this out and then run this in again straight in there, and that would do your second part of your double flare. We're gonna leave as much of the line sticking out as this first step on this insert. We got a little too much. It's about right. And then we'll tighten this down. And got that tight. We'll put our insert in, and then put this part on. All right, and we're just gonna tighten this up until this bottoms out. Probably be easier. Put it in a vise. It is kind of hard to do. Holding both sides. Should have stuck this in the vise. There's not much to grab here. There we go. And okay. And we'll take this apart. Pull our insert out. And we got a little bubble flare. So that'll just keep the, you clamp it on this side. That'll keep the clamp from slipping off. So just a little insurance to make sure you don't have a line blow off. All right, it's installed. Left this a little bit longer to kind of make it run down a little bit, to give us some room so we're not touching against these clamps back here. But we're gonna put that heat shield stuff around this, so that'll help keep it from chafing or anything, but it's not touching anywhere. And we put a flare on this line as well, and of course we did on the other one. So a little more difficult up under here, but still got it done. And again, double clamps for safety, I guess. So let me show you that heat shield stuff, then I'll put it on and show you the finished product. So this is the stuff. I'll put a link in the description along with everything else. And you basically just cut it to fit. So, and then just wrap it around itself and Velcro to itself. And then once I do both lines individually, I'll probably tie wrap them together, and that'll help hold, well, since we got rubber there, it'll help keep it from wanting to flop around, give some rigidity to it, and also kind of help hold this in place. So I'm gonna do that real quick, and then I'll show y'all our finished product. But pretty good stuff, and it should help. It's like a foil backed fiberglass maybe or something, but yeah, use it for fuel line, all kinds of stuff. I bought a big roll so I can use some of it on the Lincoln for the fuel line, help against heat soak. All right, so that's done. Where it goes around the clamps, it's a little too small, so yeah, it didn't quite Velcro around. It barely caught the Velcro, so I made sure to tie wrap on each side of the clamp. Same thing over here. Probably should have rotated. I don't think I can now, but it would have been best to rotate so the heat or the foil part was facing down, but it's fine. Yeah, so just threw some tie wraps around it just to help hold it on there, and then some of these are holding the two lines together just to give it a little bit of rigidity. So best I can tell, they are back in their factory position, which was kind of in line like this. So we should clear the exhaust. We got clearance around the bell housing. Yeah, they've got some wiggle room if we need to, but I think the routing is going to be good. And we've got just the tiniest of air gap there. I mean, even if it was touching, it really wouldn't matter because we've got, you know, it's not going to chafe with that on it. So we're going to call cooler lines done for now, and I will revisit this later. All right, the next thing we've got to do is wiring. So I have ran this wire up. I went ahead, they had it in this wire loom stuff, and I kind of had to run it on the top of the frame, which kind of runs behind the front wheel. Not crazy about that routing, but it seemed like the better option than going up over the top of the transmission and over the back of the engine. So I went ahead and put some plastic loom over it, and because I've had bad luck of this stuff breaking over time, cracking, I wrapped it in some electrical tape just to kind of hold it together. It doesn't look great, but it should hold up well and really protect this wire. And I taped up the end when I ran it up just to keep from messing up these ends that plug into the ECM. So, and I haven't tie wrapped anything. I've left it loose. So I'm gonna run it however I need to, and any excess I will bundle up, you know, on the frame near the transmission. So it's just all loosely run, and we'll get this plugged in and then, you know, tie wrap it going back towards the transmission. So let me pull that out of the way. We're gonna need to get this cover off the ECM. So I'm gonna reach down in here. There's a little tab. Should have grabbed my light. Let me get a screwdriver. All right, I'm just gonna come down here with the long screwdriver, get behind this thing. Pop it off. And we got wires and hoses, and I guess these are battery cables. They're not wires or hoses. All right, let's wiggle this out. Now I do have the battery unplugged still, or disconnected, unplugged, because I did take the starter off. I've got the starter back on, but left the battery disconnected. So here's our connectors. And if you look, there's a bolt in the center that holds it on. Now what I need to do is figure out which one we need to undo. I don't know, how well can you see? Can you see down here? Yeah, you can kind of see this. So let me figure out which one we need to undo, and we will undo it and plug in our 2 wires for our speed sensor. Okay, I don't know, can y'all see down in here? Kind of. So the one closest to the fender well on mine is the green connector, which is the one you want. I unplugged both of mine. just because it gives us a little more room to work, you know, with this harness. It's kind of a pain in here, so the more room you can get, the better. So like I said, green connector, and we're gonna gently undo these tabs here. Be gentle with these. I'll get you out closer where you can see a little better. All right, that's about the best I can do. And yeah, let's see. I've undone that. I'm gonna come in here. Okay. And yeah, this, you can see it's a pain to work in here. And I've got a tie wrap that I had added that we're gonna undo right here. We can put a new one back. So I'm gonna cut this. I don't know if you can even see. There's a little tie wrap right here we're gonna cut and try to get this plastic piece out of the way. All right. So we're gonna cut this. Be careful not to cut any wires. And that will now allow us to remove this gray piece. And let's see. I'm really trying to not blind y'all out. There's just not a good spot in here. It is cramped. And yeah, I think we can make do with that. Okay. All right, so there are numbers on this connector. Now let me look at my notes from ICT Billet. We're gonna need pin 22 and pin 23. Now our red with black stripe is gonna go into pin 22, and the dark blue with white stripe is pin 23. So let's look for pin 22. And let's just, can we get this out of the way more? Pin 22. I'm just gonna, there's no way I can show y'all very well, but there are numbers on here, and 20, is that my eyes, is that 21, 22? So the first connector, oh look, we got a broken wire right there. Did I do that when I cut the thing? I don't think I did. We'll have to repair that. I don't think I did that, but maybe I did. That's great. Well, $21. Let's see. 22, 23. Yeah, so there's two connectors right there. 22 and 23. Man, this is not fun. Problem is trying to get y'all somewhere and get the light somewhere. We're gonna start with 22, and they've got little rubber plugs in them. 22 is gonna be our red with black stripe. It goes into pin 22, red with black stripe. So let's just go ahead and undo our wires here. Red with black stripe. All right, you have to bear with me because it's been a while since I've done one of these. Well, I've never done this conversion, but since I've done plugging in a wire to these. I think, let's see, I think I can take a piece of wire. It's going to be that one and that one. My pick is not going to fit in there. Let me get a little piece of wire that we're going to shove in there. All right, we got a little piece of tie wire here, and I'm just going to shove that through there, and it pushed the plug out, and 23 is right there, and it pushed the plug out. All right, 22 and 23 rubber plugs are now out. Or we shove through them, because I felt our wire come through. Can we just shove through them? We're going to shove our little piece of wire back through. Would work better if we had something larger, but I think it was just making it too tight of a fit. You see, it goes all the way through, and we're just going to kind of shove it back and forth to help make that hole larger. We'll go ahead and do the next one. Do that one as well. And then I got me a tiny little blade screwdriver to help try to push that wire in, because so we're going back with the red right here. Okay, and getting this little screwdriver. I don't know, that may be, it's really thin, but it may still be too thick. Did that go far enough? It did. That's the secret. Get you a little screwdriver like this. You see how thin that guy is? And now we need to do the blue one, and that'll go to the next connector over, 23. So yeah, kind of ream that hole out, and then use your little, I don't know how much you can see, but I'm just getting on the back side of this connector and pushing it in with that. And you can actually hear it click. I don't know if you heard that, but you hear it when it clicks in, and you can look, and they are pushed up all the way. So I've got a wire repair to do. Like I said, I don't know if I did that. I guess I did. So I'll repair that, and then we're gonna route this probably along this harness here, tie wrap it. Again, I don't know how much you can see. Apologize. I'm doing the best I can here. We'll tie wrap along this harness and then run it down, and then yeah, and put that gray cover back over the wires, and that should be good. One other note, these little orange things, make sure they're down in the plug. They like to stick to the ECM, so make sure you seat them down in the plug like I'm doing here. There's a little channel it sits in. So that one's good, and I just need to do the blue one now. All right, I'll bring y'all back when I get all this back together. I'm gonna repair that wire and yeah, get it all back together. All right, it's in. So there's our cross member. Our motor mount, or transmission mount, just barely fit. It is at the end of this slot, and it's angling the bolt just slightly to fit. I have no idea what mount this cross member is made to work with, but this, I didn't buy a mount just because I wasn't sure what I would need, and this one looked good. It actually looks better than my 4l80e one was. But this is the one that was on this transmission, 2001 Silverado. It seems to work, although, like I said, it just barely catches. I have no idea height-wise if it's right. It seems about right. Transmission seems to be about where it was, you know, with the 4l60e. Problem is the 4l80e, the mount is further back, and what that does is it puts it on the tail shaft instead of about like this height on the 4l60e. So your mount not only has to come back, but it has to go up unless you find some thick mount, because if you just mounted it this at the same height as your cross member, the transmission would be sitting too far down, if that makes sense, because your mounting point is higher on the 4l80e. So we've got same amount of gap here that we had with our 4l60e. That confirms our drive shaft length has not changed. You know, we cut an inch off of this yoke. You could do some measurements if you wanted to and see if you needed to, but my thought is you know, if it was good at, you know, whatever length it was in the 4l60e, you know, that much spline engagement, I think we've got probably 3 inches at least, probably, yeah, at least 3 inches of spline engagement. I'll have to measure our old one. I cut this to exact length. I think it's 4 3/4. Don't quote me on that, but we've got about, what, 1.5 inches maybe. So, you know, 3 1/4 inches of spline engagement at ride height. I think that's plenty. Like I said, maybe you could get by without cutting it. I don't know. I cut mine, cut 1 inch, but you could do less if you needed to, if you wanted to. And like I said, put a new U-joint here. My old one was actually bad. I just replaced them not too long ago. Well, I say that, it's been about 3 years, but it was bad. The other end was still good, so I didn't mess with it. But this is, you know, just a stock U-joint. This yoke, it's the same. I think it's a 1330. Again, don't quote me on that, but it's the same as our drive shaft, so no conversion joint needed. And I just cut 1 inch off. Whether it was needed or not, I don't know, but I did, just to match. We've got the same sticking out, the same sticking in as we did with our 4l60e. Nothing's changed. Our wiring, it's kind of a mess, but I tried to tuck things out and tie wrap them. You know, if you wanted this a little bit neater, you could repin that harness. That's where we plug in from the stock harness to the ICT billet harness. And I went ahead and threw another piece of plastic wire loom over it and taped it up, again, just for extra protection. And there's where it plugs into the transmission. This is our shifter bracket. This is the one that came on this transmission. If you need one, I did actually order one because I forgot. I had one. This one was just bent, and I bent it back. But you can, I'll put a link in the description to it. So if you need a shifter bracket, the one I ordered is identical to this one. So it should get you going. It's for a 2001 2500. All of our O2 sensors and everything are plugged in. Exhaust clears just fine. It looks like we probably could remove the pan without dropping the exhaust, which is nice. We've got our dust cover on the Flexplate, and wires tied up over here. This is my original neutral safety switch or indicator, whatever you want to call it, from the 4l80e. I just reused it. And this is the same shift arm from the 4l60e as well. I have the one from the 4l80e. I had read where you need to use the one from the 4l80e, but I didn't. I just took this off. I don't ever undo this when I take these off. I just undo it here and slip it off. And so before I messed with trying to undo this, I just compared them and they were exactly the same. So I just put it on with the 4l60e one. There's where our shifter bracket goes in. This is the shift cable from the 4l60e. So 4l60e, 4l60e, 4l60e. GM's making this nice and easy. The only difference in the, there's a bolt that goes through about right here on the 4l60e. That mounts it on the 4l80e. It uses a bolt hole back here, but it's on the same switch, you know, that bracket, both holes. Of course, exhaust clearance is good. Here's our clearance over here. That's pretty close, but I guess it was prior because that shouldn't have changed. So I'm not crazy about that, but like I said, that shouldn't have changed. Well, yeah, it looks like it's there. There, that's a little better. I might make me a little bracket at some point to take this and kind of pull them over, maybe. But again, it's all, I showed you all of this. Crossmember uses the same bolts from stock. So yeah, I don't know okay, your speed sensor wire that plugged into the back of the 4l60e plugs into the back of the 4l80e, and then the one that you have to run to the ECM plugs into the speed sensor that's above the gear shift lever. So there's a speed sensor up here, and that one is our wire connector. That's, where did I run that one? It's right here. So this one's running over, it runs over here. It's got a little excess right here that runs, and it runs along here, runs up through here, and you can see it right in there, and just kind of runs along and runs up to our ECM. I think it would have been too short. It's a little long to run it this way, but I think it's too short to run it up over the engine. And this is, to be honest, an easier route anyway. So I think that's all. I'll go ahead and show you the segment swap in HP tuners, and that is to tune the ECM for the 4l80e. So like I said, I'll be using HP tuners to do the tuning portion of this swap. If you don't already have HP tuners, I'll put a link in the description to it, or you could have somebody tune it for you. But if you want to do it and you don't have it, link in the description. All right, so we are at the point in our 4l80e swap that we need to tune the ECM for the 4l80e.
And unfortunately, I did this and my screen recorder did not record any windows inside of HP tuners. So all you got to see was this screen right here and not any of the things I clicked on. So we're redoing this. I'm in my house. I'm not connected to the vehicle. I was editing the video and realized what it did. So we're going to walk through this again. So the first step you would do would, well, let's close this. First step you would do is you click read vehicle. This is key on, engine off. You've got HP tuners connected to your vehicle and your laptop connected to HP tuners, all that kind of stuff. We would read our vehicle, and then once we read it, we would save the tune. And so that's where we're going to pick up is a saved tune. This is my 4L60E tune. Just save it as, like I did, my 4L60E final. That's the final tune I'm going to have on this thing with the 4L60E. And what we need to know before we can do the segment swap is we need to know our OS version. And so we're going to go here to edit, and we're going to go to calibration details, and we need to know this number. You can't copy it, so just write it down. And we're going to go to HP Tuners and download a stock 4L80e tune with this same operating system. So we're going to go to hptuners.com, and you would click on my account here and log in. Once you're logged in, you click back on your little account page, account right there. It says welcome. And you're going to scroll down on this left-hand side. You're going to select Tune Repository. And what I would do is I would put your OS version in this box, and you're going to click Search Repository. And what I found is if you look here, there's no tune for a 4L80e with my OS version. So I did a Google search. I typed in my OS version and typed in the words 4L80e, and I saw a post where someone was having trouble finding one, just like I was, and they said there's one out there for a 2003 Express van. So came over here, 2003 Chevrolet Express. And I just searched for that. And what that came up with was this tune right here. And it's got a 4L80e. So we're going to download that tune file and we're going to save it somewhere where we know where it is. I would recommend once you download it, open that tune, go to Edit, Calibration Details, and look at the OS version, the operating system version, and make sure it matches your tune. So we'll now close that one and we will open our stock tune back up. So now that we have our 4L80e tune saved and we have our 4L60e tune that we saved open, we're going to go to compare. Like I said, we've got our 4L60e tune open, and we're going to go open compare file, and we're going to open that stock 4L80 tune that we downloaded. So navigate to wherever you saved it, and you're going to open it. Now, before we do anything, let's just go through and we will just check that tune. So we're doing a compare. So this one is our main file. This is our 4l60e file. And then we have our compare file right here. And as you can see, trans type is 4l80e. So what we need to do, HP Tuners makes this super easy. You're going to go to compare and you're going to go to segment swapper. And what we need is transmission and transmission diagnostics. And that's it. And what that's going to do is it's going to copy the 4l80e transmission and transmission diagnostics over to our tune file for the 4l60e. So if we say import selected segments, it's going to ask us to save. And because I've already done this, I've got a few of them out there, but we're going to name this one. Let's see. This is actually my second time recording this because the other screen recorder, I forgot to adjust the settings and the quality was really low. So we're doing it again. And so I'm going to save this. Once it's saved, we will open it again. We're going to verify that if we go to trans, we have 4l80e. Do not forget to include the diagnostics. So transmission diagnostics. So then we're going to go to write vehicle. And we hit write. And it'll write that tune to your ECM. After it's done writing, we'll just turn our key off, disconnect HP Tuners, and then we can start it up, and it's all ready for the 4l80e. Now, you could go in and you could adjust shift points, you could do all kinds of stuff. I did not do that. I did stock tune. I will circle back later at some point. I just wanted to make sure this thing worked and, we weren't dealing with, maybe something I messed up trying to tune it. So I put it completely stock. I would recommend doing that. Make sure it all works. And that way you're not wondering if it's the tune or whatever. But yeah, so completely stock now, and we will circle back later at some point and maybe do a few tweaks to the shifting.
We're up under here just looking for leaks, checking our cooler lines real good, and it's looking dry. Drive shaft looks good. So we got everything plugged in and up out of the way. I'm going to check fluid. I think I've got about 5 quarts in it, 4 to 5 quarts, and then we'll let it down and go for a drive. I don't see any leaking or anything. Well, unfortunately, it started pouring. We took it for a test drive and it started pouring down rain. Got back, checked the fluid, needed a little bit more, added it. We've got one little issue. Looks like the vent tube is plugged up. When I went to add fluid to it, it did a little puff of air. I kind of suspected that because it was kind of gurgling when I was trying to fill it. So I got to figure out the best way to do that. It's got that vent tube tees off, and I can get to it down at the bottom, but it goes to a little cap, kind of like a differential cap thing. And so I got to deal with that. So what I did is I just didn't lock the dipstick, just slid it in, but didn't do the little clasp to lock it and seal it. So it should vent like that. Meant to count our gears as we drove, but it is shifting. You can trust me on that. It's hard to tell it shifts so smooth. You know, I'm not used to, I guess, not having a shift kit. I mean, this is a stock 4l80e. It shifts for comfort, I guess. So we'll count them when we come up here to the road. We're headed home, and my dash bezel's still out. There's an issue with the chimer for my radio. It interferes with HP tuners, pretty much any tuning software, even Tech 2. It interferes with them, and I replaced it with a different one, a different chime box, and that one's doing the same thing. So I had to take the radio out, unplug the chime box to do my swap, you know, my segment swap. Yeah, I mean, we've got all of our gears and torque converter lockup, so seems to be a good transmission. Like I said, I have no idea how many miles are on it, other than, you know, the guy told me 140, but, you know, is it 140? We don't know. I can tell a difference in driving. I feel like the torque converter is a little higher stall. I don't know what, I'd have to research that. And I can definitely tell first gear is a little higher geared. You know, you feel it, I don't know. It just feels, I judge, you know, driving this thing for how many ever years I've driven it. I can just tell it feels like a higher gear taking off in first. So that, and like I said, it feels like the stall and the torque converter is a little more. But it shifts perfect, and that's all we really want. And it doesn't appear to be leaking. There's a little bit of fluid on the tail shaft housing. I pulled that off to check our yoke, you know, how much yoke engagement we had, and I may have disturbed that. It's like a square cut O-ring. Maybe I disturbed that. We may end up having to revisit that and replace that O-ring, you know, if it leaks. It may just be some fluid there from when I took it off. You know, maybe I didn't clean it up well when I put it back together, and it just had some fluid there. I don't know, but we've got no lights on, which is great. It all seems good. I got my little diagnostic thing on there and ran it. I did set a code for fuel something sensor. I think it's the E85 sensor, you know, the ethanol sensor, which I did unplug it to reroute that wire a little better location, so maybe it set that then. And then I shifted it, ran it through and shifted all the gears when it was still up on jack stands, and that threw the brake light on and ABS light on, but after driving it, they cleared themselves. So I think if I probably would have looked at the codes, it probably threw them for the front wheel sensors, because it's like, you're going 70 miles an hour and, you know, front wheels are saying 0. So it's probably what happened there. But yeah, transmission seems good. I have not gotten on it or anything. I did maybe a quarter throttle pull, and that's about it. It's awful weather, so yeah. So that's gonna do it for this swap. You know, I've got to do that. I'm gonna try just blowing air through the vent tube, but I think I'm gonna have to try to pinch off the upper part before I can. I don't know how I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna have to try to. I may have to drop the Crossmember so I can get up there to the actual. It like I said, it tees off, so it's not. There's a lower part I can get to, but I think it's just gonna blow the air up the top part, unless, you know, maybe I can get enough through it that it works. I don't know. We'll see. That's gonna do it. I'll put links in in the description for all of the parts I used for this. I think I've covered that well. Covered everything I needed. I will tally up the parts and give you a number right here on what this cost me. I don't know. I figured I was going to be in the $1,500 to $1,600 range, you know, just guesstimating the cost of everything. I did end up having to replace the neutral safety switch. It was being real finicky, and so you know, I would get it adjusted where it would show neutral, and then I would go to tighten up the bolts, and then it would not show neutral. And so I just didn't want to mess with it, and I went and got a new one. So $50 out of pocket for that one, you know, for a new one. So I did try the the one off the transmission that came with the transmission, and it was doing the same thing. They both seem really sloppy where they engage the shift shaft, and I think just over time that plastic wears. But when they're on the transmission, I think you get a lot of buildup right there, and it kind of holds it tight. But once you pull it off and you clean that shaft, then it's sloppy. And I think that was our trouble with both of them. They were sloppy in there, and yeah, just causing issues. So we new neutral safety switch, and yeah, so that's it. Long video, I think. Like I said, parts will be in the description, and maybe at some point we'll do some tuning on this transmission, and then maybe long term, maybe we'll put a shift kit in it. I kind of miss the shift kit, but we may not. We may just run it and may tune it a little bit to get a little crisper shifts out of it. It's really soft right now, so it's got a express van shift, or an express van trans tune in it. So anyway, thanks for watching. Leave a comment down below, hit the like button, and subscribe for more.